Pokemon filler is a lot different to other filler in anime, as the Pokemon anime is not directly based off a manga. So anime such as Naruto or Bleach have massive arcs of filler, while Pokemon just has episodes that are sort of filler and sort of not. Some episodes have things that move the plot forward but still feel like filler, and some episodes are pure filler but then randomly have a capture at the end, so they technically aren't filler. The way that I view episodes as filler are as if they don't have a Pokemon capture or a major battle in them, or something very significant to move the plot forward in a series. However, there is one episode which I view as filler, that is Advanced Generation episode 157, Time Warp Heals All Wounds. This one is strange because the plot of the episode is very filler based, revolving around time travel, but right at the end of the episode May's Eevee hatches, so technically it isn't filler, but it's a very good episode. So I wanted to talk about what is the best filler episode. Obviously it's all down to your opinions and what sort of stories you enjoy, so most of this will be my own opinion, but please feel free to drop your favourite filler episodes down below. It'll be very interesting to see what other people like. This won't really be a filler ranking list because I've done one of them before. It was a long time ago, but for this video I just wanted to talk about fillers which stand out to me. So let's start at the beginning. The first real filler episode in Pokemon is episode 8, The Path to the Pokemon League. Straight away you can see how this episode could be also classed as a non-filler episode, as Ash learns some pretty big lessons in this episode, including how to treat Pokemon, and that other trainers can have different types of training methods, and that he doesn't always have to agree with it. But it was another great episode to be classed as the first filler. The Kanto section of the original series didn't actually have that much filler, it was quite nicely paced despite the gym battles being a mess. Next we head to Johto, and one of the best filler episodes ever is episode 140, Wired for Battle. This episode follows Ash as he heads to a dojo in the Johto region, and the dojo master has an awesome sizzle and recognises Ash's strength straight away. So he gets Ash to come back to the dojo with them because he wants Ash to show his top student the true meaning of a Pokemon battle. The student is a great trainer himself, but he's so obsessed with his computer and looking into data and trainer stats that he refuses to even battle anymore. He just thinks he can work it all out on his computer and know who would win the battle immediately. This episode is so relatable. Growing up with computers and looking into stats so much on the internet, sometimes you've just got to let everything go and come back into the real world. And Ash was the person to bring him back from the abyss that is the internet. The storyline for this episode was really cool, and I haven't even spoken about the battle yet. Shingo owns a sizzle and it's even faster and stronger than the teachers, and Ash brings out his newly caught Heracross to face it in one of its first battles. And Ash gets the win in an amazing battle, showing Shingo that stats aren't everything. If you haven't seen this episode, then I highly recommend watching it. JoJo fillers can get very boring, as everyone knows, and there are so many of them, but this one is an excellent written episode. There is two more JoJo filler episodes that I want to talk about, and the first one is episode 125, Little Bighorn. This episode is all about Brock, and who doesn't love Brock episodes? The storyline of the episode is that the gang find a baby Startler in the forest, and Brock bonds with it straight away, but suddenly out of nowhere a giant horde of Startlers start to attack them. But it's in the middle of the park and there are not known to be many Startler living there, so everyone is pretty confused, including Officer Jenny. Team Rocket are running from the pack of Startler when Brock has this incredible moment where he realises that the pack isn't real, it's just an illusion created by Startler to scare away the humans. Just because the baby Startler is scared itself, it's just not supposed to be here, it misses his family, it's supposed to be in the forest where it belongs. This is such a great scene, seeing Brock take charge and realise the situation.
It's okay. You were scared, weren't you? But everything's alright now.
And throughout the whole episode, Brock shares this really strong bond with the Startler, and it's kind of a shame that he didn't capture it. He even throws a rock at it just so it would go back to its family at the end, which was a really sad scene. But this episode is another great filler in comparison to the previous one. It's more of a heartwarming one rather than a cool story battle episode. So there's just one more filler from Johto, but I'm going to talk about that right at the end because it is my all-time favourite filler, so stay tuned. So the Advanced Generation doesn't really have that many standout filler episodes for me. I love the series, and for the most part the filler is entertaining and it doesn't put me to sleep like Johto did. But there's no incredible stories, they're all pretty decent, but I'm going to speak about one which I really enjoy, and it shares so many similarities to the previous one that I just spoke about. It is episode 64 of Advanced, and it's called True Blue Swablu. So this episode begins with a tree being struck by lightning, and the tree is inhabited by Swablu and Altaria, and one of the Swablu fails to get away in time and is injured in the incident. And of course Ash and the gang find it the next morning, and this is a big episode for May. Much like Brock bonding with the Startler, May had a very strong bond with the Swablu, nursing it back to health, sleeping with it all night long, making sure it's okay, and then even helping it learn to fly again, as it couldn't fly because of its hurt wing. And eventually May's encouragement managed to make it fly again and get it back to its normal self. And May even offered it a place on her team, and I'm so disappointed that it didn't join her team, but this was another wholesome filler episode. One of my favourite filler episodes in the Diamond and Pearl series is episode 117, Noodles Roaming Off. I just really enjoyed the storyline in this episode. It's all about Team Rocket. They find a noodle shop and Meowth turns out to be an excellent noodle maker with his claws, managing to cut noodles to perfection, and the owner of the noodle shop, who happens to be an ex-Team Rocket trainee, ends up offering Meowth a job. And after a blaster from Pikachu, Meowth realises that he just gets blamed for all of Team Rocket's shortcomings and decides to take the job at the noodle shop. And this also leads to Jessie and James going their own way too. So Team Rocket split up in this episode, which was really interesting. Obviously, if they actually did split up, this wouldn't be classed as a filler episode. But in this case, it was different because all through the episode we hear about this mysterious powerhouse Pokemon, and James goes to try and capture it by himself, and then Jessie, who hears about it, is worried about James. So they end up meeting back up, facing down this incredibly powerful shiny Metagross. Metagross is one of my favourite Pokemon, and its shiny is one of my favourite shinies, so this was awesome. But they get destroyed by it, and eventually Meowth shows up with the balloon, and the gang is back together. This was just a really cool episode, not focusing around Ash and his gang, but instead focusing on the suffering that Team Rocket go through on a day-to-day basis. This was a fantastic episode.
Ah, that looks just like Meowth. And there's Jessie.
On to the Black and White series, and the Black and White has so many good filler episodes actually, and a lot of them are just really fun to watch. And this one, especially for me, is episode 54, The 4 Seasons of Sawsbuck. This episode revolves around a young photographer who wants to capture an amazing picture of 4 Sawsbuck all in their different seasonal forms, which is just really cool. He tells Ash and the gang that his grandfather was a photographer as well, and he shows them the picture of the 4 Sawsbuck that he captured. And the picture is awesome. Seeing all 4 of them gathering together is something that shouldn't be possible, so fair play to the writers for coming up with this fantastic idea for an episode. And Ash goes on the adventure with this guy to try and recreate the picture that his grandfather took so long ago, and of course they come across loads of issues with poison type Pokemon and the camera having issues, but in the end he gets the picture despite being fogged over. He managed to achieve something incredible. If you don't know Black and White or haven't really given it a chance, then I would suggest watching this episode because it was a really great episode, and there is a lot of fillers like this in the series that can be very enjoyable to watch. The X and Y series is a mixed bag for me. Some of the fillers are very boring and forgettable, while some of the fillers are really great, such as this one I'm going to talk about, which is pretty obvious, episode 37, The Cave of Mirrors, which sees Ash travel to a different dimension which has different versions of the whole gang, including himself, and they are the complete opposite versions of themselves. So Ash is a shy and unconfident crybaby, and Serena is a nasty bully. It was actually really cool seeing this episode because we've never got anything like this, so it was interesting. And another filler from X and Y which I really enjoy is episode 81, Rotom's Wish. This episode was another time travel one. I always find time travel episodes really enjoyable, and it involves around a rundown hotel, and Ash and the gang get sent back in time to help the battle that would stop the hotel from becoming such a dump. It was just another great episode. As for the Sun and Moon series, I'm not actually sure there is that much filler in the whole series, so let me know in the comments if there is any filler episodes in the Sun and Moon that stand out for you, or any that deserve a mention. Episodes such as 93, Lilia and the Staff would be what I consider to be filler, but that episode wasn't very enjoyable for me, so I'm wondering if there is any good fillers in the Sun and Moon series. But now it's time to talk about my favourite filler episode of all time to end things off. And surprise surprise, it is another Brock focused episode, episode 233 of the original series, Just Waiting on a Friend. Other people may not like this episode as much as me, but I always just look back on this with enjoyment and maybe a little bit of nostalgia as well. This episode focuses around a giant mansion that Ash, Misty and Brock find, and there are some weird things going on in this mansion. The lady who seems to own the place takes a liking to Brock straight away, and she owns a Ninetales who also takes a liking to Brock, but Ash and Misty aren't convinced. They start to see weird things happening, such as the lady not having a reflection in the mirror, which is pretty creepy if you don't know what's happening, and then the mirror slamming shut by itself. Ash and Misty accuse the lady of this and she kicks them out, and Brock is too brainwashed by the fact that a girl actually likes him to realise what's going on. So Ash and Misty do some investigating and they find a picture of an older man who looks exactly like Brock. So this is where the story gets interesting. They also find a really old Pokeball and a diary dated over 200 years ago. So the Ninetales is over 200 years old, which is crazy. And the story comes full circle. Everything is explained to Brock by the lady, who is actually just Ninetales using psychic powers that it's learned over the last 200 years. The Ninetales was on its own, as its former trainer died. The trainer who we saw in the picture that looked exactly like Brock. That's why Ninetales took such a liking to Brock. He just wanted to be happy. He had been lonely in this massive mansion all on his own for so long. And it's a pretty sad story in the end, and it's kind of fitting for Brock because he used to own a Vulpix. Honestly, it would have been nice to see him catch this Ninetales, but then it wouldn't be on this list because it wouldn't have been a filler episode. But this was a fantastic episode. If you haven't seen it, then please check it out. It was a great Brock focus episode, and this episode is one of my favourites of all time.
Time went on, and finally, 10 years passed, and still he didn't return. One by one the servants disappeared.
So there was some of my favourite filler episodes in the whole of the Pokemon anime. Please let me know yours, of course. I'm really interested to see what people like in terms of filler. You can also see that there's barely any Ash focus episodes on this list other than Wired for Battle. I like how fillers give us stories from other characters such as Brock, Team Rocket. We got so many Ash focus episodes anyway. Pokemon Journey so far hasn't really given us much filler anyway. Go is catching a Pokemon in every episode pretty much, so it's hard to tell what counts as filler anymore. If anything, I would say the Ho-Oh episode, which is episode 9, would be my favourite. I know a lot of people aren't keen on it, but I really enjoyed it. But that is pretty much it for this video. There are so many more filler episodes that we could have talked about, and they all deserve a mention. So as I said before, please be sure to drop your favourite fillers in the comments below. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and see you next time.